Hello and welcome to the very first edition of the Viva 50, a platform to recognize and celebrate the extraordinary contributions that women professionals are making. I'm Manvi Dhillon and I will be your host today. The Viva 50 aims to create a multiplier effect on women professionals in India and create a community of achievers who will in turn amplify the impact within their respective organizations. The Viva 50 was conceived by the Vedika Women's Alliance, which is building an ecosystem for women professionals to thrive. Western Digital India is the exclusive sponsor for the Viva 50, and that's very much in line with Western Digital India's vision to amplify women's voices and strengthen its commitment to a more diverse and inclusive future. Women are 50% of the population, but make up 8.9% of top management roles in India. They have made great strides in the world and invaluable contributions to the workplace, no matter the obstacles. Yet, when it comes to positions of leadership, women remain a minority. Viva 50's mission is to change that, to honor those who have broken barriers and shattered ceilings, advancing against all odds, to shine a spotlight on the role models of today and tell their stories, for them to keep inspiring the generations of women to come, to create a community of leaders who spark change, whose individual achievements can transform people, organizations, and in due time, the world we work in. With Viva 50, the Vedika Women's Alliance and Western Digital come together to celebrate women. The Vedika Women's Alliance is an endeavor to aggregate professional women's voices, amplify them to larger numbers, and advocate for an ecosystem that allows women professionals to thrive. Harnessing wisdom from the past, courage from the present, and promise for the future. Created by women for women. Western Digital India is a fierce advocate for diversity and inclusion, actualizing its commitment by promoting women's leadership and visibility, creating and supporting women leaders in science, technology, and manufacturing. An initiative recognizing extraordinary women, rewarding exemplary achievement, amplifying untold stories. Presenting Viva 50, an initiative for making women visible. Please welcome Anuradha Das Mathur. She is founder of the Vedika Women's Alliance, Viva, a membership-based network with a mission to build an ecosystem for women professionals to thrive. Anuradha is founder and dean of the Vedika Scholars Program for Women, a unique women's-only management and leadership program. She is the managing director of CFO Collective, a senior advisor with the Albright Stonebridge Group, and co-founder at Samarth, India's leading elder care company. Anuradha is a Yale Global Fellow. She was also selected, along with 25 other women globally, for the prestigious Global Women's Mentoring Partnership Program, run by Fortune magazine and the US Department of State. Her passion for improving women's participation in the workforce took root during this program. Anuradha.
Thank you, Manvi. On behalf of Vedika, it gives me great pleasure to welcome all of you to the felicitation ceremony of the first annual Viva 50, our initiative to make women visible. As Gloria Steinem says, when unique voices are united in a common cause, they make history. It is in this spirit that we launched the Vedika Women's Alliance almost a year ago, with a mission to create a world where professional women can thrive. I'm grateful to all those who have contributed their unique voices and joined this dream. Today, we recognize leaders who exemplify and support women's success. In bringing them into the spotlight, we create strong role models for the young women professionals of today. By telling their stories, we can change the narrative about women and the workplace in India, and I hope very soon, even the world. Why is all of this important? Our society is afflicted by a debilitating stereotype that successful women don't help other women. This is far from the truth. Research from the Harvard Kennedy School shows that even subtle exposure to female role models can greatly increase women's performance as leaders. At Vedika, which we founded in 2015, we have now graduated over 250 scholars. And I have personally witnessed the impact that a female leader can have on a young woman's confidence and aspirations. Whether it is dreaming bigger than before, believing in her own potential, or finding the courage to change dinner table conversations in her own home, or telling us that before this exposure, they thought a limited life was their lot. All of this becomes possible with exposure to those who have ostensibly succeeded and have generously shared their experiences and wisdom with our young women. With these awards and making women more visible, we have the opportunity to break many debilitating stereotypes around women and women at work. Recognizing women's accomplishments, it's not just a matter of correcting a past wrong. It is a proactive step towards a more equal future. Our hero, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, so rightly said, as women achieve power, the barriers will fall. As society sees what women can do, as women see what women can do, there will be more women out there doing things, and we'll all be the better for it. Indeed, we will all be the better for it, because a gender-balanced world is a fairer, kinder world for both men and women. We cannot all succeed when half of us are held back, and we cannot achieve this world without including men in the conversation. Men who recognize the obstacles women face and work to correct them, men who stand up for equality, men who call out sexism, men who support women. These actions are imperative, yet the men behind them are rarely recognized for their efforts. This is why we decided to introduce the Men of Impact Award as a part of Viva 50. As women's achievements inspire other women towards professional success, we hope that these men too become role models, inviting other men to be allies in this journey towards a more equal world. Ours is not a unique mission. There have been many extraordinary men and women who have strived for equality, and yet it seems like an impossible goal from where we stand today. A dream big enough to paralyze us. But we need to get started. Start somewhere. One of my favorite quotes is, start by doing what's necessary, then do what's possible, and suddenly you're doing the impossible. Each one of us can take at least one step to advance this pursuit, to dream and build what seems the impossible today. The wheels of change have been set in motion, onward, irreversible, with the momentum of the world's 4 billion women behind us. All we have to do is keep going. May Viva 50 be the force that propels us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anuradha. My hero too, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Well, it was no easy task to arrive at the Viva 50. A committed and diverse jury put in many, many hours of effort reviewing the nominations. But there were 3 guiding principles. The jury looked for exceptional stories, evidence that the candidates have sparked change, and that they are inspiring many more women towards success. Let's meet the jury for the Viva 50. We want to thank our illustrious jury for guiding the selection and recognition of the most deserving women leaders. Introducing the jury for the Viva 50. Adit Jain, Chairman and Editorial Director, IMA India, a global expert on strategy and an industry thought leader. Audrey Clegg, Group Talent Director, Coca-Cola HBC, an accomplished HR professional transforming organizations by championing women's leadership. Atul Dhawan, Chairperson, Deloitte India, an industry leader with expertise in governance, strategy and audit. Aviva Wittenberg Cox, CEO, 21st, a global authority on leadership, gender and business. Bhaskar Pramanik, former Chairman, Microsoft India and Board Member, State Bank of India, an industry veteran with over 4 decades of experience in technology. Chitra Hariharan, Head Engineering Strategy Office for High Velocity Products Group, Intel Corporation, a serial entrepreneur in the semiconductor and electronics industry. Bhavani Singh Shekhawat, CEO and Trustee Europe, the Akshay Patra Foundation, a global corporate leader with a heart for service. Geeta Dang, Founder Director, Talent Advisory Services, a business leader with experience in international banking. K.S. Vishwanathan, Vice President, Industry Initiatives, NASCOM, a pioneer at the forefront of building the technology industry in India. Rajita Kulkarni, President, Sri Sri University, an educator, best-selling author, and transformational leadership coach. Rehan A. Khan, Managing Director, MSD, India Region, an experienced industry leader who has spearheaded large MNCs across the APAC region. Reena Mittal, Founder, Sankhya Partners, an angel investor and business leader with experience in global financial markets and investment research. Richard Rekhi, former CEO, KPMG India and board member, KPMG Dubai, a business leader with 4 decades of experience at the world's biggest consultancies. Revati Ashok, co-founder, Strategy Garage and former managing director, Tishman Spire, a board member for leading global companies, mentor and angel investor. Rudra Pratap, founding Vice Chancellor of Plaksha University and ex-chairperson of the Center for Nanoscience and Engineering, Indian Institute of Science, a renowned academic who has been a part of leading scientific research initiatives. Savita Mahajan, former Deputy Dean, Indian School of Business and Independent Director, IFCI Limited, one of India's leading business experts and advisors. T.D. Chandrasekhar, leadership coach, a prolific keynote speaker and consultant. Shefali Yogendra, non-executive board director, Temple Bar Investment Trust PLC, an authority on technology, risk, talent, branding and growth. Vikas Gupta, founder and director, 9.9 Group Private Limited, a veteran marketing expert with decades of experience in building businesses. And Supria Dhanda, country manager India and vice president Western Digital, a business leader known for driving diversity and inclusion with extensive experience across reputed technology companies. We want to thank the jury for listening to, learning from, and leading a conversation on making women visible. Well, let's meet Supria Dhanda in person now. Country Manager India and Vice President of Western Digital. She leads India's strategic charter and its expansion, anchors government relations, drives sustained growth of the research and development capability, serves as a spokesperson for the corporate brand in India, and also serves on the board of Western Digital India. Supriya's fusion of business acumen, strategy, and organizational development has driven a high-performance culture and strong growth for the India region over the past decade. With over 2 decades of experience, leadership in the technology business and people functions, Supriya wears other hats as a TEDx speaker, an author, and a certified executive coach. She firmly believes that celebrating women at the top of their organizations inspires young girls and working professionals to emulate them. A belief that dovetails Western Digital India's commitment to promoting women's leadership and enhancing their visibility. Supriya.
Thank you, Manvi. And a good morning to everyone. Very happy to be here. Let's look at what the population of India is today. We are looking at 48% of population being women. Let's look at women workforce in India, only 20%. We have those 28% women to at least have a choice to see if they want to join the workforce. When we look at women in leadership positions, executive positions, the numbers fall even more. It's less than 15%. And in this declining figures, as we sit back and analyze, we know there is a gender gap. We have a problem to solve, a problem that all of us collectively need to put our heart and mind together and look at finding a solution to. In the corridors of corporate, there are many discussions that I've had from time to time. There is an intent-based discussion to say, let us close this gender gap. Let us look at hiring more women, promoting them, advancing them, and let's lay the foundation of a strong, equal, and a balanced world. However, the question that's usually offsetting these discussions, that is perhaps heralding the growth, is one question. Where are these women? Where are these women who are ready to occupy leadership positions, ready to partner with men in equal majority, and therefore lead us into the future? Viva 50 is one such curation of a platform, an initiative, a step in the right direction, wherein there is research, there is assessment, there is going and finding these women in leadership positions across multiple categories. We've looked at women leaders in various roles as engineering, R&D, technology, law, finance, manufacturing, academia, social impact, government, sales, and marketing. And the categories will expand as the vision for this is wide and broad. This has been an attempt to look for those women and present them as part of Viva 50, with immense work done by, exemplary work done by a stellar jury behind it. Western Digital is an advocate of diversity. It believes in equity at workplace. And this is worldwide. We believe in fostering a culture of inclusiveness, where there is respect and potential for all alike to utilize. We are very privileged and honored, and more importantly, humbled, to partner with Vedika Women Alliance in bringing the Viva 50 to life. It's been a dream that was envisioned a few months back, and we have a lot of us in the team have thought about this moment when this is going to be the fruition of that dream coming true. Indeed, a moment of excitement when we all sit here in the felicitation ceremony and look at recognizing each of those women leaders who have done so much of immense work in their areas and are now going to get recognized today and rewarded for their stellar and exemplary work. Each of those women are special. Each of them have a story to tell. And each of them we are happy to share on this platform as to how they'll be inspiring role models for the younger generation. And also, more importantly, they are here, the list is here for corporate India to look at and promote and advance, along with other disciplines in academia and government that we have taken a step in the direction that we would feel is the right and progressive step. So look forward to celebrating this. It is a change. Anuradha spoke about it. We live in an unequal world, and we all are believing and optimistic for a balanced world that we all need to come forward and create. It is our job. It is each one of your job to create that. And we must take it sincerely. I will close by sharing a quote from my favorite philosopher and guide, Socrates. He says, "The secret of change is to focus all of your efforts, not in fighting the old, but in creating and building and laying the foundation of something new." Viva 50, powered by, sponsored by Western Digital, is one such effort. Thank you.
Thank you, Supria. You're right. The excitement is palpable. So, ladies and gentlemen, the moment that we have gathered for, the Viva 50, a cohort that we are sure will inspire a cadre of women professionals towards professional success. The Viva 50. "190 nominations, 10 categories. There are so many extraordinary women leaders whose stories need to be told, and we are privileged to be able to share some of them today. Presenting the Viva 50. In the tech and R&D space, Monali Bhalerao, engineering leader Eaton, an expert in engineering, product development, and digital solutions, who has mentored and championed women in STEM. Monisha Sharma, therapeutic area head, Southeast Asia, Global Clinical Trial Operations, MSD India, a specialist in pharmaceutical research committed to paying it forward. Seema Malhotra, Senior Manager, Western Digital, a professional with expert technical skills and unstoppable leadership. Shivangi Nadkarni, co-founder and CEO, Arca Infosec Private Limited, an entrepreneur and expert in cybersecurity and data privacy. Soumya Prasad, Senior Technical Manager, IBM India Software Labs, Bangalore, a technology professional developing scalable solutions through AI and leading initiatives for women in tech. Swati Jain, Vice President EXL, a leader who contributed to multiplying the growth of her business division and an active promoter of women in AI. Tanuja KN, Technical Delivery Manager, Acolyte Digital, a leader who transformed organizational process to deliver product quality and customer success. In the academia arena, Aniha Brar, Dean, Young India Fellowship, Ashoka University, a leader who has steered the growth of a unique program and ensured systemic support for women. Chavi Bhargav Sharma, Executive Director and Dean, Manav Rachna Educational Institution, and Trustee and Secretary, Dr. O.P. Bhalla Foundation, a leader who has pushed for policies and programs to include more women in a predominantly male engineering college. Pooja Haldia, Senior Advisor, Center for Social and Behavior Change, Ashoka University, the co-founder of a unique institution leading cutting-edge research and application of behavioral science. Srija Iyer, CEO, Sparkling Minds, an educator using innovative, game-based learning to enable children to become confident communicators and critical thinkers. Urmi Mala Das, Principal, Bal Mandir Public School, an educationist whose approach incorporates emotional intelligence in the teaching learning process to impact on student lives. In the government field, Charu Malhotra, Associate Professor, E-Governance and ICT and coordinator of Center of E-Governance, Indian Institute of Public Administration. A public policy expert with over 3 decades of experience and a focus on the intersection of government, academia, and technology. Deepthi Ravala, Chief Executive Officer, We Hub Foundation, Government of Telangana, an engineering professional turned government leader, creating opportunities for women through technology and entrepreneurship. K. Ratnaprabha, former Chief Secretary, Government of Karnataka, a leader who spent over 4 decades in public service, working towards the development of women and children. Seema Jain, Additional Chief Secretary, Rural Development and Panchayats, Government of Punjab, a changemaker whose work in sustainable energy is generating positive environmental impact in Punjab. And now the finance vertical. Anjali Singh, Managing Director, Deutsche Bank, an experienced professional with a keen interest in nurturing the talents of women and creating opportunities for them. Piuli Das, Chief and Appointed Actuary, India First Life Insurance Company Limited, a successful actuary focused on developing products and solutions that promote financial inclusion. Preeti Mohanty, CFO and Executive Director, Ingersoll Rand, a young CFO who is actively working to create opportunities for mothers to return to the workforce. In the manufacturing segment, Suparna Handa, Managing Director, Saritha Handa Exports Private Limited, an entrepreneurial and creative spirit with a clear vision of diversity and inclusion in her field. Sarala Menon, EVP Manufacturing and Product Supply Chain, Colgate-Palmolive India Limited, a successful professional with demonstrated impact within her organization. Aruna Vakulabharanam, Managing Director, Jagannath Packaging, a promising leader in the manufacturing industry with many accolades to her name. In marketing and sales, Archana Venkat, Director and Head of Marketing, Financial Advisory Services, Deloitte India, a published author and recognized leader in the strategic marketing space. Lulu Raghavan, Managing Director, Lando and Fitch, a well-known name in marketing and sales who prioritizes hiring women in senior roles. Rubina Singh, CEO, iProspect India, a visionary in the digital marketing space who has a strong focus on safety, gender diversity, and leadership. Smita Mankad, former Managing Partner, Fab India Overseas Private Limited. Instrumental in putting Fab India on the global map, she developed a supply chain model studied at Harvard Business School and IIMs across the country. Sonia Notani, Chief Marketing Officer, India First Life Insurance Company Limited, an inspiring CXO who emphasizes inclusion and diversity within her team. Tina Garg, founder and CEO, Pink Lemonade Communications Private Limited, an exemplar in the field of marketing with a keen focus on women-friendly workplace policies. Many congratulations, but we're only halfway through revealing the Viva 50. So let's pause for a moment and reflect on what the Viva 50 signify. We'll hear from Dr. Siva Sivaram, President, Technology and Strategy at Western Digital. Dr. Sivaram is responsible for the development of corporate strategy and the technologies that fuel the company's growth. He has more than 35 years of experience in semiconductor technologies and manufacturing. Dr. Sivaram serves on the board of directors of the Global Semiconductor Alliance and the US-India Business Council. His social leadership is equally important. He serves as chairman of the board of Akshay Patra Foundation USA. Akshay Patra is the world's largest NGO dedicated to feeding school children.
On behalf of Western Digital, I want to congratulate the Vedika Women's Alliance in running Viva 50. This effort to identify and promote 50 women of substance from across the various disciplines, whether it is research, whether it is development, whether it is law, whether it is government, whether it is science, whether it is in life sciences, this idea of finding 50 women of substance from around the country to promote them is an incredibly encouraging effort. This is the kind of effort that makes us believe in the culture of inclusion, the culture of diversity, and the culture of belonging. I want to spend a few minutes on talking about this sense of belonging. The way a person is productive in life, in the world, in a corporate setting, is when they are uninhibited and are able to produce their best because in that group they belong. They don't have to prove themselves. They are there because of their capabilities, their abilities to perform, and their ability to contribute. Diversity in the workplace promotes that. Inclusion in the workplace promotes belonging. This is something that we need to aspire to. 50% of humanity is women. For us to grow as a society, for us to grow as a country, for us to grow as a company, we need to make sure the contribution of all people are valued, of all people are included, all people are making sure that they are participating in this creative endeavor. So to encourage women, to make sure that we identify these women of substance, we hold them as role model. For those people who are young and growing up, to be able to see these role models and to be able to emulate them, this effort is very, very important. At Western Digital, we think this culture of inclusion, is extraordinarily important for us to prosper as a company and for us to play our role in the society. I'm here to once more encourage all of you who are listening to take this effort seriously. Diversity and inclusion is no longer an option. It is something that is required for us to grow. This generational dividend that we are looking for in India, for us to be able to get the most out of this growing number of young people, we need to have the views, the actions, the contributions of this 50% of humanity to be an integral part of our growth. So once more, on behalf of Western Digital, where we firmly believe in these principles, I want to congratulate Vedika Women's Alliance. These 50 women that have been identified, these heroes of ours, these folks that we hold up on a pedestal, I want to recognize them, congratulate them, and let them serve as role models for all of those who are joining us growing up in this country. Congratulations and thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sivaram. Role models, they certainly are, the Viva 50, but we've met just about half the winners so far. So let's put the spotlight back on the Viva 50. It's time to meet the other half. In the field of human resources, Anita Jaipal, General Manager, HR and Employee Experience, Robert Bosch Engineering Business Solutions Private Limited, an established coach, counselor and mentor driving people strategy. Antje Bauer, Managing Director, Strength Miner Consulting LLP, an entrepreneur and consultant committed to developing women leaders through coaching and mentorship. Anupam Trehan, Senior Director, People and Communities, Cisco APJC Cisco Systems. A leader working on aligning organizational policy and employee development to promote an inclusive environment. Geetika Hans, Head HR, Corporate and Global Functions, Oyo Hotels and Home. An experienced HR professional leading initiatives to reduce the gender gap in attrition and empower women to advance their careers. Gracie Tavamani, SVP Human Resources, Administration, Learning and Development, Kinara Capital. A leader creating inclusive people management processes through data and innovation. Sakshi Kashyap, Vice President, Talent Management and Learning, NatWest Group, erstwhile Royal Bank of Scotland. Spearheading the inclusion agenda in her organization, she contributed to several initiatives to develop and promote women's leadership. In the field of law, N.S. Napinai, Advocate, Supreme Court of India, and founder, Cyber Sathi Foundation. A pioneer in the field of cyber law, combating misogyny online. Richa Chaudhary, Equity Partner, Trilegal, an established corporate finance lawyer and thought leader in capital markets, securities law, and financing. In social impact, Anuradha Kedia, founder, Vikara Services Private Limited, The Better India, an entrepreneur inspiring citizens to live sustainably through solutions-based journalism and e-commerce. Chitra Subramaniam, film producer and humanitarian Hope, a professional engaging in critical initiatives around hunger, health, and menstrual hygiene. Hardika Shah, CEO, Kinara Capital, an innovator using AI to empower India's MSMEs and promote financial inclusion. Kalpana Sampath, Director, EFIL Trust, Ground Reality Trust, Punarnava Ayurved Trust, an academic and educationist working towards improved education, healthcare, and social welfare. Payal Nath, co-founder and director, Kadam Heart, a social entrepreneur using traditional crafts to create a sustainable income for rural communities. Poonam Bagai, founder chairman, Can Kids, Kids Can, a leader building accessible models for childhood cancer care. Pritha Venkatachalam, partner and India director, the Bridgespan Group. Her work to improve public health, rural livelihoods, and infrastructure has generated measurable impact in over 30 countries. Rashmi Lamba, director, Rushes Inc., a filmmaker championing gender equality both on screen and in the industry. Sugandhi Balika, head geriatrics, Tata Trusts, a seasoned professional leading multi-stakeholder development programs. And now, ladies and gentlemen, a unique category, Men of Impact, recognizing men in business who have demonstrated their commitment to equality by supporting women leaders and advocating for inclusion. Manu Mayank, Head Social Impact and Sustainability, Humana People to People India, has successfully improved the lives of more than 5 million women and their families by enabling them to overcome generational poverty. Nidhish Kumar Singh, DGM L&T Realty, with over 23 years of work experience in training, management, sales and marketing, he is at the helm of an equal opportunity organization. Ritesh Chopra, partner, chief operating officer, and head of capability hubs, KPMG Global Services, a business head enabling women to advance their careers through re-entry and leadership programs. Rohit Pathak, CEO, Birla Copper, Aditya Birla Group, actively working towards gender inclusivity in a male-dominated industry across roles and levels. Shubhajit Payne, Head of Education, Barefoot College International, creating new opportunities for women through inclusion in education. We are honored to present the first Viva 50, a community of some of the most accomplished women professionals and men who have actively supported women at work. This is just the beginning, and we hope to amplify more voices in the years to come. Many congratulations to the Viva 50. But why did the Viva 50 stand out? What are their inspiring stories? How have they sparked change in their organizations? And what will it take to cultivate generation upon generation of women leaders? Supria Dhanda of Western Digital India addresses these themes and much more with a few of the Viva 50 jury members who could join us today. Supria.
Thank you, Manvi. What a moment to unfold the Viva 50 list. Fabulous. I think the excitement is building up even more. So with this, we have the jurors panel here, and it is my privilege indeed to host such a stellar panel. And without much ado, let's get the action started. 190 nominations received across India. And we have seen the results of top 50. We've also seen the results of Men of Impact. And there is this jury and the others that you saw in the video who made that happen. So it is my pleasure indeed to quickly introduce and welcome all the jurors who so graciously given us time to be here. And let me begin with, let's talk about women first. Professor Rajita Kulkarni. Rajita, welcome and thank you so much for your time. Rajita is President Sri Sri University. She's a successful banker turned educator, a best-selling author, a global thought leader, and a transformational leadership coach. She's also president of the World Forum for Ethics in Business and a trustee of the Sri Sri Ravi Shankar Vidya Mandir Trust. Welcome, Rajita.
Thank you.
Richard Reiki is former CEO KPMG India. He has been the Chief Executive Officer of KPMG in India, where he is also a member of the Global Board and Council for KPMG International. And he's been a board member of the KPMG Dubai. With over 36 years experience in consulting and professional services, Richard has worked with leading names that we have all at some times aspired to be in: Arthur Andersen, Ernst & Young, and of course KPMG, where he has spearheaded the firm in various capacities. Richard, what a pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Us.
Thank you.
K.S. Vishwanathan, formerly and lovingly called KSV, is Vice President, Industry Initiatives at NASSCOM. Mr. Vishwanathan has been at the forefront of NASSCOM's efforts towards building a strong coalition among members to help India retain its pole position in the IT sector. He oversees also the startup initiatives, and his key focus has been on building centers of excellence. He is responsible also for implementing the National Skills Registry initiative to make India a secure and a great and perhaps the only destination for IT outsourcing initiatives. In his career spanning across, you want to hear a lot more decades, 36 years again, he has held leadership positions at Wipro, Infotech, Dell, and of course, Azim Premji Foundation. KSV, thank you so much and what a warm welcome. Thank you. Savita Mahajan, we begin with women and we end the conversation with women and then the dialogue starts. Savita, thank you so much for joining us. Is former Deputy Dean ISB and Independent Director IFCI Limited. She was associated with the Indian School of Business, shortly called ISB, for 14 years since its inception in 2001 and was responsible for building its second campus at Mohali, Punjab as its CEO. She has been featured in Business Today's list of top 30 influential leaders, most powerful women in Indian business, and is currently an independent director and a board member of IFCI, nominated by the Government of India, no less. She has worked in several Indian organizations such as Maruti Udyog, Bharat Technologies, and Bharat Consultants. Savita, thank you so much for joining us, and we are indeed honored to have you all here. Here
Thank you,
is what we are
Supria.
going to do. I'm going to look at a question to each of the jurors and look at some of the responses. And if any one of you, which I'm sure you have lots of thoughts in your head, if you want to participate, add a comment, you know it's your panel, please feel free to go ahead while I move from one juror to the next. I'm going to start, KSV, with you. We are talking about the platform being created. We have just seen stellar 50 women win organized, recognized. And we are always looking at to say, these initiatives have their place under the sun because the world is unequal. And there is enough and more conversation on barriers that women face. And you and I both know the ER&D, engineering R&D space is perhaps even more complicated and a lot more work needs to be done. What, in your view, KSV, are some of the barriers and why do you think they're there and what can we do, more importantly, to overcome them?
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Now, I will answer it two way. Perhaps I will not sound diplomatic here when I say that there are traditionally, culturally, if I had to look at the nuances, the gender as in India, across the world, as a matter of fact, is always biased. There are some reasons for that, multiple reasons. We'll address it later. One of the things, for example, by generic, the men tend to over project, and exactly the opposite, the women tend to under project. So the chasm of gap between normal projection and over projection, under projection is so huge, it always looks what it is. Conversely, if a women were to project more or being aggressive, is considered being adverse. Reaction is as well. That's the way it is completely bought. Secondly, from a context of women again, they tend to second guess many things many times repeatedly. So because of that, even though they have terrific confidence, the confidence they need to show perhaps is as limited as perhaps the men. It's completely. It's not that men don't second guess, except that they overcome that quickly, showcase confidence bit bigger. Is all culturally whatever it is has come across. Last but not the least, even today across the globe, I would still say networking is a very very important aspect for you to come to the top, networking top, and women networking is considered a taboo. Women networking, women says I have say 10,000 contacts and 20,000 contact. I have know this guy, that guy, etc., etc., etc. Is not considered pleasant vis-a-vis men doubting, saying that I have so many connects, evening time, let's get together for a drink. Women calls out for a person for maybe I'm coming with a biased mind, but this is all reality. A reality out of that. I'm not saying these are barriers. If this could be overcome, and end of the day, after all of them, the women tend to give up, say mid-age, something. Why get into this constant comparison, etc., etc., etc. Last but not the least, in my opinion, this is what exactly Supria, you and I are trying to create also, at least in some specialized segment. I'm completely thrilled with the phenomenal leaders that you have projected this initiative of Western Digital with Vedic Alliance to recognize what I believe could be done, lots of affirmative action. Things are changing. If I had to go through World Economic Forum, perhaps there are another 6 generations required. Their estimate is next 150 to 170 years, it is going to continue like this. But perhaps after 6 generations, when I take a rebirth, I become a woman again to come into successful, notwithstanding that. The fact is, affirmatively if required, especially if you look at a community like startup, we are seeing lots of women founders coming in. That's a big change. In the past, in the last 40, 50 years, the women founders were far and few. Now women founders are coming. You know, some of the investment capital companies like Sequoia Capital or Kalari Capital, they all created a women only from women entrepreneurship fund to give what is required. So all this affirmative action could perhaps enable what is required. Even in our engineering R&D, when we are recognizing the women leaders who are doing predominantly larger innovation, bring them to the role model. Last but not the least, I will hold my comment after that. Is there a way this Vedic Alliance group today, you have perhaps spotted 100 future leaders? Even if you go to any conferences, don't get me wrong again, both Savita ji as well as Rajita ji, you find the same 50 people, same 100 women leaders getting profiled in every seminar, in every conference, etc. Is there a way we all could take a goal, whichever way, as an affirmative action, identify, profile the next 150, 200 leaders, give them the opportunities, collectively bring them role models, technology leadership put together. And once they come up, you find people start accepting that is not true anymore. Otherwise, you'll find the same 50 people getting repeated everywhere, every magazine, everywhere. So I'm saying maybe the next 1,000, next maybe 10,000, put a goal. In 3 years, I have next 10,000 leaders identified. Next 1 year, say 100,000 leaders identified. This is exactly you and I are trying to create, at least in one community that we are commonly aligned with, engineering R&D. These are my initial thoughts.
Awesome, KSV. I've known you for many years, but spoken truly from the heart. And well, you have all the solutions on the table. We are beginning with 50, but lots more to come. Great, great takeaways, and thank you so much for that. We need to bridge the gap, both internally and externally, is my key essence that, the takeaway that I have. Savita, I'll come next to you. We've just looked at the problem. There are barriers, and we all understand them. And I think we are now curating lists which are going far and beyond. Talking about this platform, as a juror, you and I were having a conversation earlier in the day before yesterday, that how there is stellar, exemplary women who have come across. The applications were fabulous. There is so much merit in these leaders, and we are so happy to shine the deserved spotlight on them. What are some of the characteristics you have seen as a juror when you were reviewing the applications, and now when you're here to witness the success, the top 50? Share with us that experience.
Yeah. Thanks, Supria. So first, of course, I'd like to, congratulate not just the winners, but each of the nominations. I, got to see some of them, and I'm sure there are others that I didn't get a chance to look at, but even from among the ones I saw, I was amazed at the accomplishments of most of these women. Some, of course, I had known of before, but many that I hadn't even heard of. And, I would do a Google search to learn a little more about, what all they've done other than what was sort of spaced out in the application. So it was truly amazing. But for me, when I was sort of doing the ratings or rankings, which was a difficult task, by the way, I mean, I felt bad in some ways, trying to rank achievers all in their right. But some things that stood out for me. So I listed 5 points, and let me just share them. So I think first and foremost, a desire to make a difference. I think that's something that comes out in all these instances, where women had done something really different. The second was a desire to work for the benefit of others. So it was not just about yourself, your growth, your promotion. It was just doing something for the larger good, whether it was the, women community in your immediate environment or larger environment or society at large, underprivileged, something, for others. The third thing that struck out for me was going out of your comfort zone. So there were many examples of people who could have done the run of the mill thing, if you know what I mean. So, you have an MBA from a prestigious institution, you can easily do a very, a sort of corporate job, well paying, all that is fine. But a lot of these women sort of, struck out and did things outside their comfort zone, which for me was a very sort of, appealing and inspiring factor. The fourth was that a lot of them, lived their lives fearlessly and courageously. So doing things that, are difficult in the first place, not getting very much recognition for it, and in some cases, like if you're working in social impact or even government, I mean, the odds are stacked against you for a variety of reasons. And still, you sort of continue to, and that brings me to my fifth point, which is persisting with the cause that you are serving, despite all the obstacles, despite all the odds. So those were really the 5 things that, struck me about women that I thought stood out, in the applications.
Beautiful, beautiful. I'm taking copious notes, Savita, and I think we have a book ready out there for you now. Fabulous. And I love the last one, which is persist, stay in the game. And courage is something I was looking at saying it's still an undervalued. I wish there was more courage that we see, and that's true for most of us. Lovely. Thank you so much, Savita. Richard, I'm going to come to you. And case we touched upon it a bit to say networking. Of course, we have thriving businesses as LinkedIn, which is all about the power of networking and the degrees that we use to connect. Connections matter. Perhaps sometimes I have seen, and maybe all of us have seen, they sometimes matter even more than your performance and potential at work. And therefore, they lay these choicest opportunities for you. I'm going to call it straight. We've heard the boys' club, old boys' club. We've heard the golfing clubs. We've heard many clubs. And there is this that women need to come out, either make their clubs or join them. What is your view on how, as a junior, you have seen, like Savita said, some of them have broken those and are here to celebrate. But going forward, what would your advice be that women can do when it comes to networking and being out there and grab those opportunities?
Supriya, I think thank you for the question, and let me congratulate both of y'all, Vedika and yourselves, for putting this fabulous thing together. Network, according to me, is possibly the most valuable asset a leader can have. And as you go up, I mean, at the end of the day, it's going to count what is your network value. I mean, how many people, what are the relationships you have? And these get built over your career. And people should not get worried. When you start your career, your network is zero or it's very small, and then you keep building it over a period of time. Because as you grow, your network also grows. So, the people in your network, maybe you're starting as a junior, you're interacting. So no need of getting excited to go and meet the CFO, CEO. Network at your level, they are ultimately going to reach there with you when you reach your level. And I'm talking a lot from the consulting, but that's all where I worked my entire life. So for us, if you don't have a network, you've got no value. You'll not be a partner. You can do anything else. So I think people need to ask themselves the very simple question: does your net work? Does this relationships that you have built, does it work? Because, and also what I find in many people, we are not authentic in our relationships, and we are very transactional. And I think we should and I want to leave this point, it's very, very important. How do we build relationships? And when we build relationships means we need to invest in people. We need to invest in those relationships. We need to be genuine, authentic, and show a lot of empathy. And the one thing that I learned from my life is that when you help people when they're down and out, you normally ignore people when they're down and out because you want to stay away. You want to be with successful people. You don't want to be with failures. They will never forget you because they bounce back. People bounce back. And that actually makes it a much more powerful relationship because they never forget what you did for them. So what's important in a networking relationship? Integrity, authenticity, being supportive, and helping others. The success is not about yourself. It's about how do you help others. So so network also helps in your business dealings, as you said, all these clubs that you form, getting things done and moving forward. I don't think we should feel shy of going and asking for help. It is not a weakness. In my view, it's a strength because that will help you move forward from where you are. Because many times you don't have something, there's no harm in asking because today you're asking, tomorrow they'll ask you, and it's a give and take. So in my view, I think both men and women have an equal opportunity and one should not feel shy of reaching out. And it is not about gender. I know KSV, you said, these women's club and people don't want to go out. But I think now the time has come to shed those things and move out as a human being, as a professional, as whatever you may be, and just be there. I mean, what are you shy about and why are you holding back? And I would say that women would benefit from a better understanding how to build and maintain this social environment, what I would say, ecosystem. I know you spoke about the golfing club, and in an earlier discussion, we did have that. And this social capital will help you reach the top. this social capital that you build with. And also, the other thing in networking, I will say, interact with people from different professions, nationalities, cultures. This helps build your breadth of this thing that you have. Because when you go for social interactions, people are looking to get something from you. And you can only give if you have got some kind of intellect or something that you can give. So I think we should look at building that. And I would end just by saying two more points here. The questions we need to ask ourselves is my network deep? Can I go and actually use it when the time comes? So how deep is my network? So you have to go beyond the surface. I'm repeating this because this is very, very important. I've learned it the hard way. You have to go beyond surface interactions. You've got to invest in these quality relationships, and nurturing new relationships in your network is very, very crucial. And as you move up, like I said, it brings new opportunities for you. If you take care of the network you've built, the network will take care of you as you go up in life. So I think women need to just jump into this. It's very
Fabulous, Richard.
important.
Thank you. There is no holding women back, is what we are hearing. And I think it's such a valuable asset that you're talking about networking. Thank you so much. I think this is just getting richer, and the quality of this discussion is definitely going very deep. Thank you for that. Rajita, coming to you, you've seen that our awards have this men of impact, which is so important. That this is very, very important because there are men leading change. We have two men on this forum and many others who are partners in this journey. As much as we may see it's by the women for the women, but there have been significant pillars of strength. There is enough written about to say how don't look for men as mentors, but also look for sponsors. Someone who owns your career says, puts his badge on the table, his badge clearly here, and says, yes, I know Rajita is the next leader. I know Savita is the next leader. What do you think? What has been your experience with men as allies? And how important is this allyship in creating a balanced world in future?
Thanks, Supriya. That's a wonderful question. And before that, congratulations on creating this incredible initiative, leading this and creating this platform for women to showcase the great work that they are doing, to really stand up and sort of speak out to their work. So hearty congratulations to Western Digital and to Vedika. And you asked a very important question, and it is amazing that I'm talking about it today. So I want to give you a small incident. On LinkedIn, there is this recommendations part, right, that you can ask for recommendations. So one of my team members pointed out to me that, ma'am, you have no recommendations on your LinkedIn. Why haven't you asked for them? I said, oh yeah, I never realized that. So I thought of writing to all my old bosses to start with and ask them for their recommendations. And these are people I have worked for 10 years back, 15 years back, some 20 years back. And all of them were men. And I started out by writing to them that, of course, we are all still in touch, but I started out by writing to them, Supriya, that if you remember me from then only you write the recommendation. Don't be forced. And what I was amazed by is that each one of them have written to me quoting incidents from then, or remembering aspects of my professional performance or my personality from them from that time. And I was really amazed that these people have remembered, and all of them, mind you, wrote me like within a day or 2 days. It's there on my LinkedIn. The first few are there. So I think men are incredible allies. I have had some incredible men bosses, mentors who have been men, even sponsors who have been men. And I think the men who have done their piece in supporting their women team members, or even women colleagues, I think were ahead of their time at that time, and definitely today I see that. A lot of times, Supriya, men say that, yes, I want to do more for women in my team, for women in my organization, but they don't know tangible ways to do it. And I think that is where those of us who are in leadership positions need to create that ecosystem and that sort of organizational framework which enables men to play a role to either support women or play a role to sort of play their bit in being an ally or a mentor or a sponsor. In our university, that we have a women's leadership forum called Charchika. The idea is to really let our women students find the wind beneath their wings. And in this program, we make sure that our male students have an equally important role to play. They organize some of the events, they run some of the initiatives. And by doing that, I think we are exposing them to the different sensitivities that are involved at a young age. So we are doing that. We also have a very, very large scale community development program. And one of them is for women. And many of our men students are part of that program. So I think from a leadership standpoint, we need to create an ecosystem which enables men to play a role. And if I was a man and if I was wanting to play a role, I would say two, three big things to focus on. One is to make your voice heard. Choose to be visible, choose to be vocal. Important to speak up. So if you see something is not fair or just, speak up. Number two, be an advocate. I think it's important. Just 2 days ago, I was in a Harvard Gender Equity Global Symposium, and many of the speakers there were men who were speaking about how when they spoke up, it became more clear and easier to make the point than if only the women spoke up. So I think important for men to speak up, be an advocate. In fact, one of the men there said that I would urge every man to take paternity leave so that maternity leave doesn't become an unusual thing. There is a syndrome now called motherhood penalty, which still exists because they say if you take 6 months leave and then nothing changes, then maybe what was your role all about. So men can demonstrate by actual behavior some of these things. And I think important to also create a safe space for open dialogue and discussion at the right levels. So men can play a really large role. I personally have been very, I think, fortunate to have great mentors and sponsors. And I really want to add to what Mr. Rekhi said about building deep networks. It is said that women are not good at building deep networks. Women build deep friendships much better than men, but don't build deep networks as well as men. So I would urge women who are listening to this, don't hesitate to build networks and first give to your network. People think of networking as getting something out of it. I think it begins with what you give, and when you invest in it, when you give of yourself, then what you have to return is just a bygone sort of conclusion. So you will get back. So these are a few initial thoughts. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Rajita. And what a wonderful thing. I think each of the jurors you're saying, there is an element of being human. There's an element of giving first and taking back. So I think as much as we are looking at women in advancing at workplace, as much as we're looking at men as allies, network, I think what I'm also hearing is be human. And I think that goes for both men and women, and look at exploiting and making use of opportunities there. This is beautiful. I'm now going to leave the floor open. Perhaps we've lost Savita. We're going to get her back in a short while. Here is an open question to all of you, and feel free to comment the way you like. This is about your thought leadership. We know we have an unequal world, which is why conversations of this nature are extremely important, which is why our leadership and our milestones, our steps in the right direction are important. Thanks, Savita. We have you back. I'll quickly replay this in 10 seconds to say, we're hearing great, words of wisdom in different topics that we are discussing. Savita, we were talking. We are now coming to an open question to say, we live in an unbalanced world, but we all know we are not going to get focused on the problem, but we are going to focus on the solution. What are we doing to create a better and a balanced world? So here is my question open to each of the jurors, and feel free to whoever takes the lead here. What is your view? What needs to be done from an individual, society, and organization at large, create a balanced world for future? What do you think needs to be done? And we're not only discussing women, we're now discussing the entire ecosystem that perhaps needs to change.
Supria, I can
Sure, Rajita, yes.
I think what Mr. Rekhi said, that as you grow in the organizational hierarchy, or as you grow professionally, you make different networks and different things work for you. From where I am right now, I consider that this chair that I have gives me incredible opportunity to make a difference. It gives me incredible power to make the difference. So I would urge everybody who's in a chair like that we have, that we need to demonstrate the intentionality of our leadership. So if we say we want an equal workplace, equal opportunity workplace, it has to reflect in every policy we have in our organization. It has to reflect in the way we conduct day-to-day conversations. It has to reflect in the values that we live by, which is really the behaviors that we demonstrate at our workplace. I'll give you an example. The pandemic has not been easy for us. And, as a university, we went 100% online to teach. And now so many of our young professors who have little children, 2 years, 4 years, 5 years, some toddlers. Now, it was a tough time to teach from home. So we made a number of policy decisions which enabled our young moms to teach from home, teach with your babies in your lap. Now, we have to support, so we have to demonstrate the intentionality, I think, of our leadership and our of what we stand for in terms of creating an equal world. And secondly, I think we have to have the courage to take the tough decisions. So whether it means sometimes stopping what is not working or starting something which might be disruptive, I think that lies on our shoulders to take the tough decisions. So I look at my role from that point of view, and I hope I'm doing my bit and enough in that direction. But I really want to say intentionality of leadership for those in leadership positions.
Fabulous, Rajita. I love that. We have a platform, let's make most of it. There is a lot of power within each one of us and the platforms we have. Let's be courageous and use them. You're doing more than enough, Rajita. And we can only wish you Godspeed and say great luck in continuing to doing this. Any of the other panelists?
You see, I'll put it other way. If I give us some data, my suggestion is if I give an IT industry, tech industry, for instance, at the entry stage of graduation, about 50% of the workforce who join the workforce industry is all women. When they go to mid-level, the 50% drops to about 25% for various reasons. And when they go to the senior level post, whatever title you may call it, it drops into about 10%. We did an analysis of what is causing it. Mind you, it is nothing else. It's just a sheer, I'm using the word easy word, lack of role model. My suggestion is twofold. A fold one is at the entry level itself, when people are graduating, 50% of the people just don't offer jobs at all. So how do we encourage, with all the commands and powers at our disposal, including several forums that all of us are there, even they can encourage more and more women to take up jobs. To my mind, it is important that let the percentage continue with 10%, 15%, the volume increases, that creates one. So encourage that. I'm seeing improvement. If they can mass scale it in whichever way, in whatever frame, maybe perhaps 7 of us talking together in our group, LinkedIn itself, giving the messages, keep on saying employment, women is important. Second, which in my mind, I'm sure in every organization there are gems. The women gems leaders are there. I would suggest identify them, create them as an role models. Take role models to have succeeded against adversity, so that people get to know what could be there. Third, my session is, I'm not saying, I do not know about the group here, but largely whichever group I've gone in, whenever there's a diversity initiative, assuming there are 10 people, 15 people discussing, the 14 of them are women. Just one men to say that we just get them in and saying, just get everybody in and make the men as a leader of the group to discuss action. Between all of us discussing the problems and not getting the collective action, vis-a-vis get the leadership to men to say, now you understand, execute it, things goes faster. last but not the least, the affirmative action that which I spoke about earlier, identified two or three affirmative action. Every segment, every field that we represent, we have. Like what we have identifying, the engineering industry, in the tech industry, the women force is perhaps less than 10%, whereas the average in tech industry, the women force average is about 30 to 33%. Even the 4% gap, the affirmative action that we are taking, what needs to be done, is a great thing too. So affirmative action, get men into a role to be responsible, and don't say it's our problem, we discuss ourselves and just put the blame on XYZ. That won't work. And last but not least, encourage more people to take up into the workforce.
KSV, I'm not missing the passion at all. There are so many actions, and by the way, your and my work is cut out in the ER&D space along with other leaders, and I'm sure we're looking at it doing that nationally at some point. Each and everybody's making effort. Lovely, lovely. I think we need to do more, and we need to have this passion live. And look at this panel. Count me out as a moderator. Well, it's 50-50, and I wish how the world.
No, why should we count you out?
As a moderation,
We want the numbers up.
No,
I'm with you, Savita. Thank you for checking me on that one. Lovely. More jurors. What is your view, Savita? Richard?
So,
Yes, Richard.
yeah.
Let
so,
Richard.
Supriya,
Yeah.
yeah. Supriya, I'll tell you, start with one example. A chariot has two wheels so that you can balance the chariot, right? So, and I've realized as you sit in the higher, on the boardroom tables, etc., the more women you have, there is a more diversity of views which help in taking the right decision. So I think it's in the interest of the organization. And I do not remember which company it was, but there was a company which actually brought a woman director into that. And when more than 50% of the consumption that is happening today in the world, maybe 80% of the consumption, women actually influence that. And if you don't have women out there in the leadership position taking those calls, you will never be able to work for what women need, right? So I think it makes business sense. Secondly, India has been a big beneficiary of when 1991 economy opened, the IT industry boomed, etc. When our GDP grew, but how many people actually went and understood why this GDP grew? It was a lot to do with the women coming into the workforce, and it helped the GDP growth. And now with women slowly moving off that workforce, in many ways, one is seeing those numbers actually fall. It is worrying. It is really worrying. And I think we need to. So I think leaders, wherever they are in influential positions, like most leaders on this panel, I think one needs to do our bit in ensuring that we create an equal ecosystem where women can actually not only survive but thrive. And we should see how we can get them, creating a more happy work environment. But I think one point I want to leave here and is that women themselves need to be confident. Women themselves need to take the initiative and say, I want it. So it is not, because I remember once I was doing this thing with some of our senior women people in KPMG. And one of them said, why don't you give us double promotion? Why don't you give us, get us faster up the career? And one of the women stood up and said, no, I want to earn my stripes. I don't want it this way. So I think it's about women actually wanting to earn their stripes, and they have the talent. It is just about, I think, KSV, you said that they they talk about them as underperform and they do much more than what, and men actually go beating their drums. So I'm not talking about beating the drums. I think you need to do sincere work. You need to ensure that it's known to everybody. And also it's a mindset issue. And the mindset issue starts with us being a patriarchal society that we are. And it starts from our home, actually, right? And actually, women are also responsible for it because the way they treat the different children and, everything else. And I think if this can be worked on, we sometimes don't work on the root of the problem. We are working on the outcome, when they come to work. But it starts at the home. And I feel, my personal view, let's see, time will only tell. I think COVID is going to be a big game changer in this, of women coming back, like you, Professor, you said, Kulkarni, you said that, now those professors those teachers can sit with their children and work with them on their laps and, we allow them to do. So I think this work from anywhere or remote working is going to be a big help. And I think organizations need to do one more thing. I will leave this last. I don't want to take up too much time. Is that women take off for their children, to take off for when they're having their babies. Why don't you count that as an experience? So when they come back, because that is skills that they have embedded, which could be used in the organization in very different ways. And I think, normally we say, okay, you've gone off on 1 year, whatever maternity leave. Now you're 1 year junior to your colleagues when you come back, and that becomes a big ego issue for people who are ambitious, etc. So I think there needs to be an understanding that they also picked up other skills which could be useful for the organization. The issue is we all want clones. We all have a very typical way of interviewing people. We need to give credit for different skills that people may acquire. So I think there has to be some few changes out here. So this is a few of my
Lovely,
thoughts.
Richard. You very beautifully said few, but what I heard is many. And I think thank you so much for calling the elephant out in the room, patriarch. Thank you so much for saying the consumer base economically is changing and there are women at the helm of decision making. And therefore, we need them and the women in the workforce to understand and design for those consumers that are out there making this decision. I mean, there is clearly an economics that was at play here in working. And at the end of the day, you're right. This is about, I think, just making a big difference by saying, to have it in you, you want to come back, and I think opening up the ecosystem. This is a large, I'd say this is a societal revolution or an evolution waiting to take place. And so you're all of the myths, Savita, back to you to say what is your...
Yeah. So let me build on what Richard said. It is about mental maps that we all have, men and women. And in my experience, both personally and professionally, early socialization plays a big role. It's a baggage women carry about what they've seen in their immediate environment, whether they've had role models in their personal lives growing up, you know. So early socialization actually plays a big role, both for men and how they see themselves when they grow up, and girls and how they see, you know, I have a son and a daughter. So sometimes, the big picture seems rather overwhelming to change. So I always come back to one of my favorite quotes, and I don't remember whose it is attributed to. Be the change you want to see in the world. I think the best we can do is in our environment. So, me as a mother of a young boy and a young girl, what they see in my house, what they see in me as a professional, working person, all that is early socialization for them. And hopefully, when they become, in my case, they are adults, they will view, my son hopefully should view women around him differently. My daughter hopefully should not, think that she's limited in any way from achieving what she wants to achieve. So similarly, starts from the home, then in your workplace, then, as you sort of expand, I get invited to speak to young women all over the place. And I keep telling them that, it is your mental map. It is your mental map,
Thank you.
So,
Savita, that's beautiful. And I think I just kind of, while you were doing, I think, yeah, it's attributed to Mahatma Gandhi, be the change you want to see in the world.
Okay, maybe.
And, so you're quoting our father of the nation beautifully. This is a brilliant conversation. And look at my job right now. To sum up, and that I don't think there is possible summation of multiple ideas that have been shared. So I'm going to make an attempt at it to say what is it that I can sum up in the next 2 to 3 minutes, because there have been some. The thing that stays with me, and I'm sure that's mostly the experience of hopefully the viewers, is there is a lot that needs to be done. This is a big, big thing we need to solve. The beauty is we all realize this is one that we need to solve, and the intentionality, like Rajita said, I think there is a positive, clear intentionality of action and leadership that I see here in this forum. And I think I would love, and we would love to see more of that at every household, at every individual level, and of course society and organization at large. I think that is how this is going to change. We are not going to rest, and we should not rest till this is achieved. So Rajita, thank you so much. Just to look at to say, when you're saying men as allies, this can't be done simply. That has to be done together. And I think this is not about hating men and loving women. It's about coming together to create a balanced world. And I think that is the beauty that I'm seeing as one of the essences that I'm walking away lovely from this session. Richard, network. And I love the way you split it. Hindi mein sandhi vished. You just split it to say, is your net working? That is so beautiful. Are you casting it deep and wide? And I love the way you're saying go deep into the network, and that's beautiful. And Rajat, I come back to you quickly to say my recommendation on LinkedIn is pending, and I will throw that very shortly. But such a great tip that you shared. Go out and reach out and build your profile, and it also gives you an opportunity to see how with you could bring them into the conversation, which, to your point, ask for help, ask for recommendations, ask for a network, and I think people are there. Savita lovely said today that you would like to leave a different world. So I think there is beautiful stuff about how we need to bring up our people, our children differently. We need to probably bring up daughters differently. We need to bring up our sons differently. And at the end of the day, this is a mass movement that we are looking at. And wonderful 5 points I've always going to stay with me to say, walk away with courage. You saw women as far more courageous, far more bold. They're willing to write a different story. And we always say the road less traveled is probably different and painful, but that's what gets remembered, and people love you for that. So I think that is there, and resilient. My favorite, stay in the game. Just don't quit. So I think that's brilliant, and thank you so much for that. KSP, I'm going to close with you. Why? Because I love the way you said it, and it resonates with me again, and I'm sure it resonates with all of us. I said that. Open up. There is a lot of affirmative action. Yes, women want to win it only because they deserve it. Nobody's asking for freebie. Nobody ever asked, and there is none of that we want, and that is not what we are saying. Everybody wants to earn their stripes. There is a lot of action that needs to be taking place, and I'm sure it is happening, and which is why forums of this size and scale, they make sense. But I love the way I close by saying, we are saying, men, open up a little, and women, step up a little. I think with that, if we open up and be more inclusive, and women see that spot and are eager and hungry and ambitious to go and occupy that spot, and we don't call them by any of those names, I think then we are looking at creating a scalable, sustainable, and a more balanced world. And jewelers, I love you so much. Thank you so much for sharing. I wish this conversation goes on and on. But like they say, all good things need to come to an end. But I think this is just the beginning of a lot more takeaways personally for me and our viewers who are watching us intently. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you very
Supriya, for
much.
being a great
Thank you.
moderator.
Great fun. Thank you.
Thank you, Supria. And a special thank you to our panel for making the time to join us today. There were so many valuable insights that came through in this discussion. And to everyone who's with us today, I apologize because I'm going to be repeating some of the things that came through in the discussion, some of the things that Supriya just summarized. But this is a platform to really absorb insights from experienced people. So I'll take a couple of minutes and reflect on what came through from the panel to me. Mr. Vishwanathan's advice to women: don't hold back. Have the courage to project and position your strengths both internally and externally. And his advice to organizations: identify the gems, create the role models, applaud them. And we are hoping that Viva 50 prompts organizations as well to do just that. Ms. Mahajan, it's worth reiterating the qualities that you applauded in the Viva 50: fearless, courageous, persistent, going above and beyond. These are qualities that are worth holding on to. They are worth honing. Mr. Reiki, valuable advice that your network is your most valuable asset as your career progresses. There's no need to be overly ambitious because Mr. Reiki said build authentic, not transactional relationships with your peers. As you progress, so are they going to progress. And that's the value that you're going to be building together with your peers. Ms. Kulkarni, Supriya referred to it, I'm referring to it. I love the real example you shared at the start of your comments. The fact that you were prompted to ask for recommendations for your LinkedIn account. And all your bosses, going back years, interestingly, they were all men, promptly wrote the recommendations for your LinkedIn account. And what's really important to note is that they recounted really meaningful examples of your professional prowess. It goes to show that there's supportive men out there, and here at Viva 50, we recognize that. That's why we instituted the Men of Impact category. Supria, our panel, thank you very much. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I am sure you will agree a lifetime of achievement merits a special category of awards.
There are women whose remarkable vision and contributions have left an inimitable legacy. To them, we are honored to present the Viva 50 Lifetime Achievement Award. In finance, Chetna Gala Sinha, founder, Mandeshi Mahila Bank and Mandeshi Foundation, a banker, economist and activist who has empowered thousands of rural Indian women to become financially and socially independent and create change in their communities. In law, Justice Geeta Mittal, former Chief Justice of Jammu and Kashmir High Court, a figure known for breaking glass ceilings in the legal world and contributing towards legislation for gender equality. In social impact, Geeta Dharmarajan, President, Katha, an award-winning writer and editor, inspiring social entrepreneur and educationist. In social impact, Mirai Chatterjee, Director, Social Security Unit of Siva, a leader at the forefront of improving the health and financial security of millions of women working in India's informal sector. In academia, Indira Parekh, President Antardisha and former founder president of FLAME, Foundation for Liberal and Management Education Institute, a leading academic and pioneer in liberal arts education. There are women who help break gender barriers that are hard to describe, but they deserve a special mention. Chitra Banerjee Divakaruni, writer and Betty and Jean McDavid Professor of Writing at the University of Houston Creative Writing Program, an award-winning author taking stories from India to the global mainstream. We cannot achieve an equal world without the participation of men. The honorary Man of Impact recognizes a male ally whose support has left a lasting impact on gender equality. K.V. Kamath, former non-executive chairman of ICICI Bank and former chairman of Infosys, a pioneer who has championed and mentored a generation of women leaders in banking. And now awarding bright young professionals who carry the torch forward and exemplify Viva 50's values of empathy, courage, and equality. The Men of Promise Award goes to Sabaratinam Selvaraj, Fulbright Scholar, Harvard University, a young leader who has demonstrated his commitment to equality by advocating for gender diversity and inclusion. The Founders Award, Rahul Lalchandani, Assistant Director, Admissions and Marketing, the Vedika Scholars Program for Women, a flag bearer of Vedika's dedication to helping women reaching their full professional potential. And now the Viva 50 Western Digital Sponsors Award. Sakshi Sani, Program Manager, Strategic Initiatives, Western Digital India, a young professional whose contributions to her organization have been consistently stellar, original, and reflective of a deep sense of ownership, passion, and commitment. Chaitra Srinivasan, Staff Engineer, Firmware Engineering, Western Digital India, a technology professional who has significantly contributed to innovation and enterprise projects. The Viva 50, celebrating the spirit of women leaders.
saluting all the award winners. And at this stage, it gives me pleasure to welcome back Anuradha Das Mathur. Joining her are a select group of Lifetime Achievement Award winners to reflect on their journey and the ingredients for sustained future progress on diversity and inclusion. Anuradha.
Anuradha, you are on.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Sure, I'll just check on her diary for you, just in case one of the dates are not doable.
I'll tell her in half an hour.
And she will give you the date in half.
Out. Sorry, can you all hear me?
Now, yes.
Sure, I understand.
Can you hear me? Yeah? Okay. I wanted to say a huge congratulations on your Lifetime Achievement Awards. It's a big privilege and honor for us to have you here with us today. Each of you has such a compelling story, and you have the power to inspire and transform many, many lives. I want to begin by asking, who inspired you? Were there women, men that led you to do what you have done in your life and inspired you? So can I start with Chetna? Talk to us a little bit about who inspired you.
Anuradha, when I talk about inspiration, or where is every day, where do I get inspiration, motivation to work or to do what I am doing? And it goes to the actually little bit. I'm taking you all back 2 decades back, more than 2.5 decades back. As I always say, I had never thought that I will start a women's bank, which clearly indicates that, I had no dream of that, no plans that way, born and raised in Mumbai. But I was not an MBA thinking like, okay, I want to start the banking. But I went and married to Vijay, my husband, in a village. And then I met village women who came forward and who wanted to do savings, and the banks were not ready to open the account. And I felt they are not asking money, they are not asking any credit, they are not asking any subsidy. What they were asking is to save their hard-earned money. Kantabai, who is a street vendor, and when banks denied, I thought, why not start a bank for women like Kantabai and street vendors? And in the beginning, when we applied for the banking license, nobody believed them. Not only that, in the villages, nobody believed them, neither in the regulator side, neither in the sector.
Hello?
Banking sector said that, what are you talking? Bank? Women's bank? Who cannot save, who save daily 100 rupees? The regulator said that no literacy? What are you thinking? And at that time, women said that, yes, we cannot read and write, we can count and manage finance. They challenged the regulator, they challenged the officer, ask us to calculate the interest of any principal amount. If we fail, don't issue the license. And we got the banking license, Anuradha. And when I'm saying that, what I mean, in the villages, how the life for women is very different. Now, I'm not saying that in city it is not. It is different. If some lady says, I want to do this, the first thing, the response you get is maligning them. लोग हंसेंगे, कहेंगे ये क्या सोच रहे हो? Same thing happened with our women when they talked about bank. People said कि रोज तो कचरा निकालते हो, कचरे की बैंक चालू करना है क्या? You want to start a bank of कचरा bank. And with that, with that whole opposition, these women believed in them. And I'm so proud, Anuradha, that today we have impacted 500,000 women who did not talk about, so these are the women who have actually inspired me, not only inspired my individual journey. I say that they are continuing inspiring the sector, the regulator, the Reserve Bank of India, because while they speak in front of Reserve Bank, they show what is the path of distribution.
Yeah, no, it's, we are very proud and very inspired as well, Chetna. And it's interesting to me that instead of inspiration coming from people who have done more and have more, in your case, it's come from people who technically have less privileges, but are still inspiring you to do what you do. So it's a fascinating insight. Mirai, can I come to you next? I know that I don't think you were on the call when we started. The question is that each of you has the potential to inspire so many, but what were you inspired by?
So, first of all, I'm sorry about that. I was having a little technical issue, and thank you very much for this honor. Sorry, there seems to be a kind of double voice going on, so I'm sorry for that. Yeah. So, thank you very much, first of all. Sorry about that. I was having a little technical issue.
Are you on Zoom as well, Mirai?
Yes, I am. Should I
Can
get
you
off that?
just get off Zoom?
Sorry about that. I'm sorry for this. There seems to be a kind of double voice going on.
Just leave the
sorry.
Zoom meeting. Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that, folks. Yeah. So, thank you very much, first of all. Okay. Thanks very much again for this. I just wanted to say thank you. I'm honored and humbled by this award. And as you know, Anuradha, I said that I feel that, rather than individual women, we should be honoring and recognizing women's collectives and women's collective leadership, because in my experience, that has been a really powerful experience. Fortunately for us, as many of us have said on the Zoom call as well, there are thousands and thousands of women in this country who are, excuse me, who are exerting their leadership, showing exemplary leadership, particularly during the pandemic, I must say, at the grassroots level. But you asked what was my inspiration? I think, like many have said already earlier in the earlier panel, I was fortunate to have strong women role models. My own mother and her circle of friends, who were the first women group of leaders after independence, I think, to take up leadership in the corporate sector. And as a little girl, I remember listening very much to their struggles and their small triumphs as well. So I think it inspired me to think that women can do, women do, if given the opportunity. Of course, those were women who are educated and women of privilege. And then I've been inspired greatly by grassroots women leaders all these years at Seva who did not have education and privilege, but have deep insight, who are talented, who are PhDs in life, if I may say so, and survival and risk mitigation strategies. So many of them, my first mentors at Seva was Suman Ben and Chanda Ben. Neither of them have been to school. One was a datan vendor, one was an old clothes vendor, and they took me under their wing and taught me so many things about life. And then the first area where I worked was also full of strong women leaders. They were street vendors in the city of Ahmedabad on the banks of the Sabarmati River in a large urban settlement called Shankar Bhuvan. And even now, whenever I'm in doubt and need of inspiration, I go back to my sisters in Shankar Bhuvan who, despite COVID, despite losing their livelihood, despite so many struggles, not only took leadership in taking care of their own families and communities, but put others before themselves and showed leadership during the pandemic. And finally, I've been very fortunate to have the example of exemplary leaders and mentors. Of course, Ilaben Bhatt, the founder and leader of the Siva movement, who is an extraordinary leader and who, encouraged younger women like myself to take leadership and always taught us leaders are those who put others before themselves and who develop others as leaders. And then others like Dr. S. Anandalakshmi, who is an eminent educationist, and Dr. Carlosna. Unfortunately, the last two are not with us anymore. So I've been fortunate to have this kind of support right from when I was a little girl.
Very nice. Professor Parikh, can I ask you about your inspiration?
Yes. See, it's like this. It's not just one person. Over a period, as I.
आपकी आवाज नहीं आ रही है, इंदिरा जी. I can't hear you.
Now, can you hear me, please? Can you hear now? No. I'll just ask.
Shall we? Let me ask Geeta to start in the meantime, and you just fix your volume. Yeah, Geeta, can I come to you?
Thank you, Anuradha. Thank you so much for choosing Katha and choosing me representing Katha, because I am nothing when I look at, and I'm totally with Mirai saying that it should be our women, such grit and such, I would say, such joy in life. They put poverty to shame by the way in which they do things. And they stand up over there and they fight their men who drink, who bring in no money at all, who are just lying in that cot outside saying, so the women can say, mere paas bhi ek aadmi hai, and I can depend on, I have a man to defend me. So I think we are looking at a completely different society where this awareness we are talking about is there in one sense. I work in Tamil Nadu also, and strong women, I mean, wonderful women. And then you find that, suddenly they are within a kind of what is it? They can't let their light shine. They cannot move outside. They cannot do things. Society has its norms. Society has its stereotypes. And then when I look at my little girls, and we work with so many girls in our communities. We work around 2,000 slums and poor communities, and you should see them. They will find any stereotype. They will stand up and they'll say, "Nahi ho sakta hai. We can do it." And so, when you look at the young generation which is coming up, I remember my grandmother, my grandmother's mother, my great grandmother. I used to call her Party. And, she was a young widow. She became a widow when she was 18 with 4 children. And she couldn't walk on the main street. She had to walk through the back street. But when the cow did not come home, she was the only one who would go there and say, "Lakshmi, Vitikva," and that cow will come home. She had that power. She had that voice which demanded and commanded and impelled and compelled, attention. And I think our girls have that spirit. And I just love to hear our girls. Shehzadi, for instance, when she talks, the world listens. And she's just in 4th class. So can you imagine what's going to happen to our world when these girls grow up and they come and they say, we can and we shall. And I think at that point of time, we need to have our men with us. Because as Anuradha, you've said, we only hold up half the sky. The men hold up half the sky. And in many, many places, the men are holding up a little more than half the sky, which is not fair, which is just not fair at all. So we had to go back and work on it and see that, women are holding up half the sky. And when I think of this, I need to go back to the community of women that I grew with. I grew in a wonderful community of women, grandmothers and, aunts, and we all used to sit, on a little, my grandfather had built a house with 7 steps, as if there was going to be a storm coming in or a tsunami coming in immediately. And we used to sit there and eat And we heard stories. Constantly, we were hearing stories. And the stories were giving us the power to question, to say why. Why did Rama treat Sita like this? Why did he treat Vali like this? Why? And the answers had to come from within because we believed in that stereotype and we lived in that society. So when I'm looking at our girls, and then I look back, I look at my mother. My God, she's a poet. She writes so well. She's 91 today, and I'm sure she's there listening. And the joy I get from listening to my mother's poetry and the way she inspires me. My grandmother, my aunt Janki, who's sitting somewhere, but who gave me my complete sense of color and design and everything. All my aunts. I think, when I look at the hundreds of women I have met in our communities, I think this award is for them. It is not for me. It is for them. And I think with them, I am so happy to share this space with them and receive this very, very nice award from Vedika Scholars on behalf of all the women who've inspired me in my life. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Indraji, can I come back to you?
I'm having some problems. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Can I speak now?
Yes, we can hear you. Geeta, why don't you go ahead?
I think, just...
No, sorry, Geeta, Geeta Mittal.
It's so good to have a namesake here.
I know.
My heartfelt gratitude, Anuradha, for this wonderful award. When you're sworn in as a judge, you don't look for awards or recognition of your work. And a lifetime achievement means as if life is over. I still think I have miles to go before I sleep. They retired me from the judiciary, but my work in ensuring a more egalitarian society in every space, is not over. You've asked a very difficult question, not so difficult when I look back on my life. My mother has really been my mentor and my role model. I come from a family of academicians. Both my parents opted to teach, and teach, and they were both very, very ardent teachers committed to the field of education. My father actually gave up a job working in Burma Shell for the love of teaching. He taught college, and my mother was a school teacher. She taught in a Delhi administration, that's a government school. And some of the things she said have been my life's largest learnings, which have stood me in my path as a judge. You know, who can you imagine a school teacher who, if the principal was not punctual and was late, would insist that the school bell rang on time and led the school assembly? If the principal called her for a meeting when she was taking a class, she would send a slip back with a peon saying that she was in this class. These were her free periods, and if the principal didn't mind, she would join at a meeting in any of those periods. And from this, and then her constant refrain used to be that, what is the value of your teachers, where they actually test 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds through admission tests and select who are going to be their building blocks. In my class, I have the child of a class 4 peon or a sweeper sitting alongside the child of a chief engineer or the class 1 gazetted officer. And so this is where my values of equality came from, non-discrimination, equality. I learned of punctuality and her sense of duty from her, and all of this works, it was just ingrained and absorbed by me in her into my way of life, and the constant desire at improving our own competency. While both of us were there, I have a younger sibling. We were both I was in middle school, my sister was in a primary school, my mother joined post graduation, then she went on to do a PhD with both of us, and a full teaching and a commitment to her household. They say everything is a habit. Honesty is a habit, hard work is a habit, punctuality is a habit. So if she was a perfectionist at a place of work, she had to be a perfectionist at home. So you could have a servant, but she still enjoyed feeding us our garam rotis and our garam parathas, and which many of us women do. We don't treat it as a chore, we treat it as a labor of love, and we enjoy doing it. So, I had this, and her perfect carriage. Her saris used to be, even in Delhi monsoons, spick and span starched cotton saris to school. And, she stood out, and so she was a great role model. My sister's 7 years my younger, she's my other role model. I see she's also taken to teaching, she's a doctor, and the same sense of commitment, despite being a professor, doing a PhD in drug policy, etc. The third role model I've had in my life has been my ex principal, Dr. K. Sengupta. I went to the Lady Oven School. Dr. K. Sengupta was a PhD in mathematics in the 1960s. We did not have a school uniform. It was one of the top schools in India at that time. 7 principals in Delhi are from Lady Oven School, even on date. Miranda House, Lady Shriram College, Indraprastha College, amongst others, all have women who have been studied and educated by Dr. K. Gupta. She was my other role model. She used to say, "Why must I impose a uniform on my girls? You think my girls don't know how to dress?" And this is
Amazing.
just one of the things she said. And lastly, I'll just sum up. I could go on with this list. Have been judges from jurisdictions where they are sitting in absolutely devastating circumstances or in extreme violence. I've met judges from Syria, women judges I'm talking about, Syria, Afghanistan, Nigeria, when Boko Haram was kidnapping hundreds of girls, school children, and the judges from Sri Lanka, Fiji, at their times of turmoil, where judges have had to judge with independence and impartiality, with a gun being placed on the dais, and they're being asked to decide applications of bail or hand out guilty or acquitting sentences. So, these have been my
Very
role
nice.
models, and they have helped me look at equality, marginalization, deprivation, subjugation in a myriad of colors and
No, thank you.
views.
That's very, very, very inspiring. Dr. Parik, can we? Are you
Now
now?
I'm I'm
Okay,
ready.
good.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay,
Yes, we
okay.
can.
First of all, I'd
Your
like to thank the Viva for including me in this very prestigious award and being part of the group of people who are so accomplished and capable. Let me just say a few things that, see, right from childhood to as you grow up, there are different people who impact you and reinforce the same message. So my first cognitive recognition that there is something in working was my aunt, my father's elder sister. She used to be a principal of a girls' college in Porbandar. And whenever she came home and she was sitting anywhere, and my father or my two uncles came, they would stand up. So I remember distinctly
Oh, oh,
everybody was terrified of. But he would also get up and address her so gently. Somehow it struck me that being in a teaching profession is exceedingly good. Then the family environment supported education, but I got married off at very early, at 18, and I went to Chicago. My husband was doing his PhD in physics, and he took me to meet his dean of physics. And he says, "Young lady, what do you want to do?" And I said, "Study." So he told my husband, "Why don't you let her go to college?" And my husband says, "I'm only getting $300 as stipend, and I got an increment of $20 because I got married." So I said, "The fees are too high." He did not say anything, but a week later, he called him and said, "Your tuition is waived. You send your wife to school." Now, that was
wow.
a major impact on me of saying that there is somebody who doesn't even know me and wants me to do something, so I have to do it well. And my first course, I got an A in University of Chicago. From Calcutta Scottish Church College to Chicago, University of Chicago, I got an A. And my husband looked at me. He said, "Did you see it correctly?" I said, "Yes." I said, "Why don't you come and help me? Maybe I don't know how to see it. Especially this is such a new country." And then he looked at me. Actually, he was surprised that I had an A from coming from Calcutta to Chicago. And since then, he has been so supportive of my growth. It's very admirable that because of him, I have grown so much. The second major incident was I was in France. My husband had a job, and my IIM told me I should go and take some courses in INSEAD. So I went to meet the dean and I said, "This is what my institute says." And they had heard of IIM. And that his name was Dean Berry. So he looked at me and spoke to me for an hour. Then he says, "Young lady, why don't you teach?" And I almost fell off my chair coming to INSEAD and somebody asking me to teach. And I said, "Now, see, this is one of the things which kind of is a reinforcement of a positive trend which has continued." And similarly, the kind of person I was working with thought I was a protege of his. So he would invest a lot of effort in making me do what I did. And of course, I had a liberal education background. And see, another thing which happened was, again, a very major breakthrough support system. I don't remember their names. I was in Denmark and somebody saw me wearing a sari walking in, and the universities are free there. So I went to the university and took whatever was possible in English, English literature, English poetry, English history, English this, everything I took, American history, British history, British poetry, American poetry. And there were some philosophy professors who called me and said, "Would you take a session with us?" I said, "About what?" He said, "About philosophy." Now, I was terrified. I was 19 years old. And I said, "I will be talking to philosophy professors about Indian philosophy." What I picked up was that at no age is a bar to discovering and learning something. And I think this I hold as a value, that no matter how old you grow, learning is very important. So there,
Nice.
over a period of time, there are so many incidents which connect positively. If I build a thread and put the pearls in it, it would be a positive. While at the same time, I think a lot what people have spoken is that there have been challenges because systems have not appreciated, because I was the um, uh, for 1.5 years I was the only woman faculty in IIM. And I was a species kind of a thing in the institute. But the students were so good. I have had enormous amount of support from the students. If something negative happened to me, I would go and crib in my class and see, this is what has happened. And students, I mean, almost stood up to saying, "Okay, Prof, it will be all right." And so it's not that who has supported you. There are so many incidences, challenges which make you resilient because there are so many support systems. So I always believe that it's very important to provide support to women. And I have always pushed women to do their PhDs. I have literally fired them if they haven't finished their PhDs. And this is something that one has to support women in a positive manner to take further steps. So I think I always feel I'm blessed that I've had so many incidents of positive push and support from people around me, and especially men.
I want to, the stories are very similar and still very different. And I want to flip what I've heard and summarize it to say that it's, each one of you, and I think everyone on this forum today, we have no idea who we are inspiring and how. If you can get inspiration from an older man and a younger girl, or from a mother, or from a father, or from a teacher, or from a principal, then instead of saying how do each one of us inspire people, it's like saying we are sort of in a glass bowl, and the way we behave, what we say, whether to others or to ourselves. There's this thing about, actually, a bunch of Vedika scholars did a film in our first year. It was called The Worst Critic, and it ends with saying, be careful of what you say because you're definitely listening. Right?
Yes.
And I think we have the power, without realizing it, to inspire so many people in different ways. And we can draw it from anywhere. So this has been great and very, very rich. Now, in the interest of time, I do want to get your opinions on a bunch of things. So I'm going to ask each one of you to be a little bit short so that we can get lots of your insights on some of the things that I want to talk about. I want to ask each one of you what you think is your regret or mistake in your leadership journey and your journey of change. So if I can start with you, Mirai, maybe top of mind, something that you could have either done differently or not done.
I think taking a cue from what Indira just said, if I were to want to promote more women's leadership within the organization and especially at the grassroots, I would focus more on creating an ecosystem, including especially childcare, which is my special passion. It's very hard for women or young women to be in leadership roles if they do not have access to full day childcare. They cannot enter the workforce. They cannot be economically active. And, unlike perhaps some of us, they don't have the means to have someone at home to care for their young ones. So I think one of my regrets, I'm not sure if it's regret is the right word or unfinished business, is to work hard for universal childcare because it's good for children and it's good for working women and it's good for building women's leadership.
Very nice. I'm going to talk to you offline about that. Indiraji, can I ask you?
Yes. I remember one or two incidents where I've been harsh to the extent of not being correct. I think that sometimes rankles in my heart, that why would I do such a thing? What was it that I was going through that I wasn't sensitive in my leadership role? I cannot be cruel and I cannot be harsh, but it has happened once or twice and I still carry it very regretfully in my heart.
Beautiful.
I just used harsh words. Yes, I just used harsh words which were not appropriate without listening to the person. Yeah.
Chetna? You're on mute. You're on mute. You're on mute.
Thanks, Anuradha. When we were setting up the bank and when we got a bank profitable, so the first decision at the EGM was taken that, we'll give a dividend, share a dividend to all women members. Many of our women members said that, we want to reinvest dividend in the reserves. I felt at that time that, no, these women have invested. They should get dividend. Once they get it, they will realize the power of the institution of their own collective. And so we said, no, let's women get dividend. And for 3-4 years, we kept on doing. But later on, women didn't listen. They said, no, we want to invest in reserves. And they said, why we are forcing is that we will again invest in women's business because they don't get anything from their family. They don't have collateral. They don't have property. So when they were so forceful, that was a learning for me, Anuradha. And I'm so when you get these awards, Lifetime Achievements Award, there are so many learnings which are there where you want to share that, which comes from who has never got an education, right? Formal. So that I think I would have listened to them and have thought that they have a better wisdom than me.
Very nice. Geeta?
Me?
Can everybody just go unmute because we'll just, Mirai, Chetna, just stay unmuted. Yeah.
Okay, so which Geeta are you talking about?
I said Mittal, but now that you're speaking, just go ahead.
Okay, so I think I have two regrets that I did not perform my role because I came into leadership without being trained for any leadership. I just started something. It so happened that I took over, and I was like a millipede. I didn't know where I was putting my foot, and if I put it in the wrong way, or if somebody reminded me I was putting out I would have frozen at that point. So my two regrets are, one, in my wanting to say that the pendulum must swing, and we should say that we should always say she and not he. We should always sort of give prominence to the girl, and we should always sort of say that the girl can be a role model, a girl can be a protagonist, she can be in all our stories. I think in that I forgot that boys hold up half the sky, and without their help, and I know I'm here because my husband is there with me right through my journey. He's been there with me, and knowing that, I think I did not, and I'm just realizing that maybe I could have done it better, and maybe I could have been more inclusive. I talk so much about inclusion, and in the effort to be inclusive, I left the boys out of it, and didn't include them, didn't include the men. Used harsh words about the men when they were not available for the women, when they were not helping their families. 50% of our homes were women headed households, and they were not helping. I think, like Indraji had said, I think I have been a little harsh, so I regret that very, very much. I
Geeta
regret not
Mittal.
doing that for my family also.
Geeta Mittal.
Yes, I have always got too much to say and too much to do. My largest regret is that I didn't start speaking fast enough. I was very conscious and cautious in the beginning, and I feel I should have spoken much earlier than rather waiting for the time to arrive, and have done much more, at an earlier stage. It took me time to realize that it's my road alone, and I have to walk it all by myself. And the importance of speaking up. I really wish I
Very
had
nice.
started much earlier, rather than waiting to go, letting the feudal, judicial system take its time. I should have spoken, and I could have achieved much more probably.
Right, right. No, very nice. I want to come to this thing that afflicts all women. I'm going to take advantage of the fact that I have this frame with very incredible women. How did you deal with guilt? It's something that only women talk about in the manner that they do. Did you face it, or are you unusual? And if you did face it, how did you deal with it? Can I start with you, Mirai?
Could you
With
say your
age?
question?
No, the
Did you
question
say
is,
with age?
no, with guilt. How do you deal with guilt?
Ah, with guilt.
Because
Yeah.
women seem to carry the disproportionate burden of guilt in this world.
Yes, true, true.
So talk to me a little bit about whether you felt it and how you coped with it.
I absolutely felt it. And honestly, it's only been fairly recently that I've been able to some extent, set it aside. I have three daughters, one and then twins. And I've always had a busy work life. So a loving, supportive family, and like everyone on this saying on this call, a very supportive husband as well, sort of my fellow traveler in this journey. But I do feel guilt and regret to some extent, coming back to the earlier question. Perhaps if I were to do it again, I would spend a bit more time with my daughters when they were under 5. I went back to work very quickly after my twins. Um, and, they laugh and say, Mom, that's crazy. You are what you are. And, why do you even think like that? But I do, because that's how we're socialized. And also, I think several family members, even people I'm close to, it's been hurtful, have sort of um, made remarks like, oh, you were too busy, a working woman type of thing, the stereotype. And I think that, don't you want to put family or your young children before your work, before all the other women you work with and for? And I think I always felt like, this is a false choice. I mean, women are good at balancing and multitasking. But I think society does a number on us. And I think once I read a book by a woman, forget her name, who also addressed this issue of guilt of working women. And she also said, it's okay to feel guilt. I mean, guilt makes you more sensitive and helps you balance out different roles. So I guess I took some comfort from that.
Very nice, very nice. Indira ji?
Thank you. Yes, as a young woman, it was always my travel because for consulting assignments and for teaching assignments, I had to leave Ahmedabad. And I started working when my son was 10, so it wasn't as early. But he used to still feel Ma is out, Ma is out, Ma is out. And I used to feel really bad about, and I wondered whether it was right to do it or not right to do it. And then I would get up late at night and early mornings and think through whether I was important and whether what I wanted was important or whether just doing what everybody was asking. But you see, the society creates guilt, and the neighborhood which I lived in were very traditional, conservative people. So they kept telling her, your mother is not there, your mother is not there, your mother is not there. And the social system also. For example, when my husband, at the my age of 58, had cancer, everybody says, see, she's out so much that he has suffered inside and therefore he has had cancer. So they say such things which are quite hurtful, but my husband never said any of these things. So I had to balance my guilt versus saying, okay, every member of the family's unfolding and growth is important, and my growth lies in this way. And I think people need to accept it. My son recognized it much, much later. Now he is 58. So about 10 years back, he came to terms with it. I think because there were so many times he met people in embassies, in places where people when they would ask him his name and he would say Parekh, he says, oh, we know Parekh, Indira Parekh, you know him, know her. So I think he came to terms with it that no, my mother has not done so badly. But when I was growing up, I was feeling guilty, yes.
So, Anuradha, actually, in the beginning, I didn't feel guilty, very honestly, beginning. When I say that, what I mean is that when people would ask me about balancing the life, children, and same Mirai, I have three boys, eldest son, and then twins. And I used to say, like, no, I have chosen this as a career and I don't feel guilty. I used to say that, and I even in that way. But recently, so which means like somebody was taking care of the children, right? And my mother in law was taking care of. So now I carry a guilt that I didn't spend enough time to the second mothers of the children. And that guilt is with me. That even every day, in spite of taking care of all three boys in a village, and they are global now, but the wisdom which she must have shared with them, which I missed, I couldn't learn from her there. And now I have that guilt that every evening she would wait for me when I come back for dinner, will not take even at 11 o'clock. And she took care of all three boys, no education, but she made sure that they will go with my other sister's children as they have gone in Ivy League. They should go studied in Marathi medium. So with the wisdom she raised my kids, our kids, my mother-in-law, and now I have that. I'm carrying that guilt actually, Anuradha. And it's good you asked this question because these are the things you don't share, right? So I'm carrying that guilt of not, learning enough, sitting with my mother-in-law, understanding her wisdom, how she could do that.
Geeta Mittal?
I was a lawyer for 23 years. I used to leave the house at 9 o'clock in the morning and come back after evening chamber and office at about 10 o'clock in the night. I lived with my parents. I'm single, so I don't have guilt for children. But for 23 years of my life, I felt so guilty about making the impositions I did upon my mother, who was also a working lady at that time, and would keep hot dinner for me, wait up for me at 10:30, would not listen that she doesn't have to do any of that. But I think in the 16 years of judgeship, when my parents and I lived in an official home, I got the chance to make up to them, and we were able to enjoy living in good places in official accommodation in the center of Delhi. And I got time to spend, meaningful time to spend with them. Lastly, with my mother, my father passed away 5 years ago, with my mother in Kashmir. She wanted to go back to Kashmir. She had last visited it in 1968. So though she was in a wheelchair, but I was able to show her the Lidar and Pelgam and carry her to the snow-capped peaks of Gulmarg. So it was a lot of catching up, and a lot of meaningful time sitting on that veranda in the Chief Justice's house and hearing the Aarti of Shankaracharya, come down from the top of the mountain. So I am,
Same.
don't have the guilt which moms do, but I hope I've
Still
been
to
an
do
okay
with them.
daughter.
Oh, Geeta Dharmarajat.
Well, it's a huge question. I think I'm just deficiencies and I am just guilt. So I think I could have been a much better leader. I think I could have been a much better mother to my daughter and my son. I could definitely have been a much better daughter-in-law. Like Chetna was saying, Appa and Amma, we were all a joint family. Appa lived with us till he was 102. And my father, yes, he just died, Anuradha, about a week or so before he turned 102. And he liked holding my hand, and I was so busy sort of running around. And Appa, if I went to him, he will say, have you slept? And I will say, no, I have slept, Appa, don't worry. Then he said, no, you must be having work. Go and do your work. Somehow, I think he was more understanding of what I wanted than I was of myself, understanding of him. The same thing with my mother and my daughter. I really wish, when I hear all of you, I wish I had more time for Tulsi and had been with her a little more and done things with her. She sent me a photograph this morning. She and me having ice cream together. She said, remember, this was about 3 years before the same day. So we have a lovely relationship, but I think I could have. So, yes, I believe I could have been a better leader. I think I could have been a better mother. I could have been a better daughter. I could have been a much better.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think, again, this conversation brings me back a little bit to what Richard Reiki said before, right? That ultimately it becomes about relationships and the people in your lives. And there's so much material out there that talks about it. I think, to Mirai's point, we have to work at an environment where we don't carry disproportionate guilt. And till that world comes about and we can create that world, I think we have to learn, like you, Mirai, said, that, it's okay to feel guilty and then still get on with it. I have just 5 more minutes and I want to wrap this up. I don't want to let you go without asking this question. So again, I'll request you all to be very brief, but this will be of huge value to our audience. So what quality of yours do you think has been the most beneficial or helpful for you in this lifetime of work? And one quick piece of advice for people who might be listening to you. So let me start with Chetna.
So I'll say, I'm struggling, so say 2 qualities. One is listening to people. Just listen well. That is one. And second is when everybody is saying that this is not going to work, but if in your heart you feel no, it will work. Just don't care. Just don't care. Go ahead.
Very nice. Very nice. Indiraji, can I come to you?
See, the best thing is to create space where people can walk in and walk out as they choose. For the if they need help. For my students, for example, could come to me when I was sitting and working. When they saw that there was nobody in the room, they would come in and just stand there, and I would ask them, "Is that you want something, ma'am? Can I come and put my head in your lap?" And I would say, yes, go. And they would come around the table and start crying. And after 10 minutes, give me a big smile and leave. And I think that was the best space you can create for anybody who can come to you without fear, with courage, with certainty that something will be available to you. One incident I will like to quote, which is my very precious incident. There was a student from Mozambique who had come to IIM, and I had done a personal growth lab with him. On his day of departure, he came to me and said, "Prof, tell me one last message." So I said, "Look, Julian, you have come to IIM, one in your whole country. So destiny definitely has something for you. So do not say no when the destiny offers you something." 15 years later, he came back on a state visit because he was then the president of Mozambique. He came to IIM. He came to IIM just to see me, and he told the Prime Minister, "I have to go and see a prof." And Prime Minister said, "Do you have to go and see Indira Parikh?" He said, "Yes." So I was absolutely thrilled that because when he was a student, I did a program for IIM for Gujarat government when our current Prime Minister was then the Chief Minister of Gujarat. And he and the Mr. Julian, who is now the President of Mozambique, got along very well. And he just came to IIM Ahmedabad to meet me, to tell me this, that I have listened to your advice and I'm now the President.
Very nice.
So
Mirai?
create a space where people can come. Yes.
Very nice. Mirai?
Sure. I think empathy, that has enabled me to connect with Suman Ben and Aisha Ben, my Seva sisters at the grassroots level, and with corporate leaders and politicians. And that connect has been very helpful to our movement as well. And I think optimism, I have a positive view of human nature. And I try to be hopeful and instill hope in others. And my advice, as you asked, is, follow your heart. Go where your heart takes you. There'll be all kinds of hurdles and people will give you all kinds of advice, but listen to that inner voice and you will not go wrong.
Very nice, very nice. Geeta Dharmarajan? One quality.
Something, and okay, I think for me, the first thing is laughter. Laughing with people, hugging them. I love to hug people, and I'm constantly hugging. Even over this, I'm hugging people over Zoom. So I think, laughter and hugging is a silent language with which we can say a lot of things which are impossible to say with words.
Very nice.
And if I have one thing that I remember when I was a young child, we had to find the third crescent. We called it the Moonram Pirai in the sky. And it was like a nail pairing. You just couldn't find it at all. Then when you found it and you pointed it out to your grandmother, there it is. She could not find it because the sky was full of stars. Now I realized at that point of time that the distance between the tip of your finger and the moon is just your journey. There's nobody else who can take that journey with you. We have to do that journey. We have to take the journey, and we have to be determined to take that journey. Thank you.
Very nice. Thank you. Geeta Mittal?
Yes, I have followed the three H's. I etch them on my heart and mind, and I follow them. Brutal honesty, absolute hard work, and humility. And my daily prayer when I sat in court used to be, let no one leave my court with a sense that he or she has not been heard.
Oh,
So the
how
ability
beautiful.
to listen, which
Beautiful.
carves into extreme patience, and
Beautiful.
and as I said, everything is a habit. So that was not only my professional habit, but my personal habit has been and is my personal habit as well.
Beautiful, beautiful.
And
All I
so
can
what I
say
would
is,
advise women is don't get deterred at all. Work on your competencies and keep at whatever you aspire to be.
no, beautiful. And all I can say is the richness of this conversation tells me the importance of diversity, because how different is this conversation than I can imagine a conversation with 5 lifetime achievement awardees who were corporate leaders and men. So thank you very much for your, for your heart in this conversation, and I've enjoyed it, and I'm sure that our viewers have enjoyed it and taken away as much from it.
Thank you.
Thank you, and
Thank you,
congratulations once
Anuradha,
again.
for the lovely questions, which really brought out deeply buried feelings and thoughts in all of us. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Anuradha.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Anuradha. Thank you to the panel, Mirai Chatterjee, Chetmadala Sinha, Justice Geeta Mittal, Indra Parekh, Geeta Dharmarajan. I've been a business broadcast journalist for 20 years, and I just haven't seen this often enough. I'm echoing Anuradha here. But, wonderful women achievers on the screen. They're talking honestly, they're talking from the heart about what inspired them. And forgive my presumptuousness, but I have some advice for you. Don't apologize for technical issues. They happen all the time and to everyone in this virtual world. But really, thank you for your honesty, whether you were talking about regrets, whether you were talking about the guilt of working women. We were listening carefully. We took comfort and inspiration from what you shared. And I just want to highlight that, conversations like this are kept alive through the year by the Vedika Women's Alliance. So, Anuradha, it's back to you for your final thoughts.
Thank you so much. And before we end, I just want to convey a very, very warm congratulations to all the awardees of Viva 50. This is our very first year, and it's an immense privilege to bring together remarkable leaders from across sectors and invite them to join our dream, our mission. The truth is, our work has just begun. This ceremony is the first step. And like I've said before, the African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, then go alone. And if you want to go far, then go together. The quest for equality is a long one for all of us. And if we want to succeed, we have to ensure that this community that we are building moves together as a force of change. Each one of us will do our bit, individually and collectively, to transform our homes, our families, our organizations, and therefore society at large, to create that world where we all hope we can come out and be as aspirants to the kind of women that we are seeing on our achievements and our list and roll of honor today. But as they say, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. How do we move beyond this intention towards action and leave the world for professional women better than each one of us has found it? I meet women all the time who want to do something. They want to contribute. They want to pay forward. They want to pay forward their own privileges, but often don't know where to begin. And I think it'll be fitting for us today to take away a few ideas on how we can make a beginning. Everyone who's on Viva 50, but everyone else who we hope to bring together in this journey. And we make a beginning with a call to action, some of which can be actioned as early as Monday morning. The Vedika Viva framework, in my view, is a good place to start. We have a few ideas that can create the impact we seek, and I'm going to leave you with a few ideas. The first one is really simple and a starting point, which is really just about awareness. Is there awareness around this issue? Conversations around equality are slowly being brought into the mainstream. These are around the lack of women in our workplaces, how many women are falling out of the workforce. And given the talk, one could assume that we've made significant progress. In fact, one often hears, especially in large corporate gatherings, that there's too much being made out of gender? Is there excessive affirmative action? But as we've seen earlier through some of our videos, the numbers still paint a very, very different picture. And I think each one of us needs to have data and information on our fingertips on broad women and work issues. We have to be able to substantiate our asks, whether it is from our organizations or from society or from policymakers. Whether it is the depleting number of urban educated women in the workforce or the hugely disproportionate division of household chores between men and women, or reasons why women drop out of the workforce. We must arm ourselves with these facts and figures so that we speak a common language and ask for the same things collectively. The second idea I want to leave you with is around amplification. I don't know how many of you know that under Barack Obama, women in the White House were very cognizant of the fact that credit often gets depleted. Women say something, it gets lost in a boardroom, it gets lost in meetings. And when men make the same point, it suddenly gets picked up and amplified. So women in the White House decided that they would amplify each other's voices. They would call out their colleagues if they'd made a point or given an idea and say, oh yes, like so and so mentioned earlier, so that credit didn't get lost, visibility didn't get lost. We also have to magnify and amplify through our actions. Recognize the women we work with, recommend women for leadership roles, mentor and sponsor young women professionals. We can do this as organizations, as institutions. We bring women's success stories to the forefront. We can start with the support of one woman at a time, and we can begin doing this literally right away. We can also invite men to be our allies and help amplify our stories, our efforts. Even if we pick one man to convince each month as an example. This could be our house help in what they should do for their daughters or how they should behave with their wives, or it can be senior policymakers who can make a change to the ecosystem. The third idea I want to leave you with is calling out stereotypes and myths. Whether it's about women not having ambition or not helping other women or not being good with numbers or not being good negotiators, we know that none of these things are universally true. And when they are true, they are often the outcome of social conditioning or the lack of opportunities and encouragement. Let's promise to flip the switch. Remain vigilant on this score and question and call out these stereotypes at home, at work, and in our casual conversations. If we let these fester or go unattended, these become much harder to erase. The fourth idea is around advocacy. To achieve impact at scale, we need to introduce policies that will enable the inclusion and success of women in the workplace. We have to be familiar with benchmark policies to be able to do this work. What do countries that have better equality and better scores on gender, what do they do at a national level from other countries? This is a larger objective, but any of us who have the option to be able to either sponsor or lead this kind of research, we must do this to be able to participate in systemic change. And finally, one of my most favorites, which is let's reclaim feminism. Many women are embarrassed of that word and are ashamed to call themselves feminists. But that's because this word is misunderstood and we have all become apologetic. As senior women, unless we reclaim the word, we will lose a very important vocabulary to make a simple point about equality. We have to, in my view, unabashedly buy into the definition of feminism and each time reiterate that feminism is simply the social, political, and economic equality of the sexes. Can we disagree with this definition? If not, let's try and reclaim that word, call out the fact that we are feminists, and actually urge every person who inhabits this planet to proudly call themselves a feminist. The commitment to creating a more equal world and working towards it every day is a daunting thought. It's daunting enough to just let it be. But by choosing to practice any of these actions that we've spoken about, we could make a winning start. We must remember that gender equality is not a zero-sum game. It's a cycle of change. And in the years to come, the leaders of Viva 50 have the potential to transform organizations, industries, society, and their homes. In the years to come, we hope to keep amplifying stories until no one can say, "Where are the women?" as an excuse for a negligible number of women on boards and in leadership positions. But most of all, I hope that in my lifetime, Viva 50 goes from being an endeavor to correct a wrong to simply being a celebration of extraordinary women. Perhaps in the future, there will be no female leaders, there will be just leaders. But until women have their rightful place under the sun in equal measure, Viva 50 will continue our mission of making women visible. Thank you so much for joining us today. Looking forward to Viva 50 next year.
I too say thank you to you all for joining us for the very first edition of Viva 50. Our journey has just begun. There are more women to be made visible, more role models to be recognized, more stories to be told. Our quest for equality continues, and we invite more extraordinary leaders to be a part of it until all women have a seat at the table. Empowered women empower women. Let's all pledge to make women visible.